Morning. Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Radio Work. This is Kim, your forever host. Sorry about the hitches this morning. I've had builders in and they were supposed to be finished 2 days ago, but they're still here. So I just had to arrange with them to do the noisy bits a bit later because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do your hang up for you. So here I am. And this morning, I'd arranged to talk to Marina about sugar and the importance of not eating sugar, the importance of avoiding it for your skin. But unfortunately, she's not able to join me this morning, as we'd hoped she'd be able to. So it's just me chattering on to you. And I apologise if the sound is not good, but as the foot builder's in, I am unable to locate my mic. It's in a box somewhere buried. So hopefully by next week I'll be loud and clear. And yeah, next week I'm hoping to do a live podcast with vision so that you'll be able to see me. And I'm going to be doing a home makeover, home facial with you that you can do day to day and week to week, and talk about products a little bit and how to choose products, what ones to choose for different kinds of skin, what ones would suit you, or different kinds of lifestyle, things like that. So if you'd like to come along and join me, that would be fantastic. And if you're going to do that, you could fetch your own cleanser, toner if you use it, moisturiser, whatever you have in your weekly routine. Fetch all your products and a bowl of water and a flannel or some cotton pads, things like that, and come and join me and I will go through a nice routine with you and we can treat it as lovely mini pampering. So that's what I'm doing next Friday at 8 in the morning. But back to today. So, for those of you who don't know me, I should say that I am your forever host. The reason I'm your forever host is because I'm the author of Forever Young, the holistic guide to a glowing complexion, and I'm currently finishing up my next book, my second book, which is Forever Young Guide to Anti-Aging. So I'm very passionate about skincare, and I've been working in holistic therapies and things for the last 20 years. After training to do aromatherapy, where I very first started doing facials 20 years ago, I've done a number of product houses and learned many facial routines. I've worked on very, very many people's skin, and I've come to realise that lots of the questions we ask are the same, but the answers to those questions are not always the same for every person. So for each person, we need a very individual plan and something that's tailored to them, because we're individuals. So our plan needs to be individual too. So what I do these days is I talk to people, and if possible, I get them on my couch and I do a consultation with them, look at their skin and discuss their issues with them, and hopefully create a plan that would suit them. And I offer coaching for people would like it, to get their skin on track so that it can be the healthiest it can possibly be. And in being healthy, this helps to keep the cells in really good order. And the better and more healthy our cells are, the younger we look. So perfect. Also, our skin is a reflection of our inner health. So without our inner health, our skin won't look good. So in order to get our skin in the very best possible shape, this means that we're actually trying to make ourselves as healthy as possible. So our doctors will be very pleased with us, and it's not all about vanity, so we don't have to feel guilty about that. Because I think in this day and age, people There's a lot of pressure on people to look young and beautiful all of the time, uh, but there's also a stigma attached to it, which seems to suggest that that's vanity in some way. It seems very unfair to me that on one hand people are being forced into looking in the mirror and seeing every possible fault they have, and on the other hand being told that they're vain for doing so. It's a juxtaposition that seems completely unfair to me. So my view on skin health is that healthy skin, it looks the best and is going to have that lovely glow that we're all looking for. And in order to do so, we can't just put on products on top of bad skin. What we need to do is go from the inside out. So I take an approach which goes by the acronym PLANTS. So I look at products, I look at lifestyle, I look at activity, so a little bit of kind of light exercise, just something to get your blood flowing, normally just walking, something very simple, yoga. Doesn't have to be running around, even though that's my chosen poison. But yeah, just some kind of activity to get your blood flowing, and it's much better for your psychology as well to get outside, get a bit of fresh air occasionally, or at least just move around the house if you can't do anything else. So activity, nutrition. So I look at the different foods which are ideal for keeping our skin in good order, but also at the foods that are not so great for our skin, which is what we're talking about today, and treatments, the kinds of treatments that will suit different people, what different treatments do, how I rate different treatments, things like that. And also, finally, the coaching, which is the S for success in plants. So I think that success comes ideally if we have a plan, and if we stick to that plan. And in order to stick to plans, I find the best way of doing that is to have a coach, especially for myself. Whenever I've got a coach, I do wonderful things and move on in my life. And when I don't have a coach for some reason, I can't have a coach for a while for some particular reason, then things tend to start. So that's why I offer coaching for people. Plants is my system for remembering all of the areas of your life that you need to act on in order to have the very best possible skin. And the program I run is the Journey to Youth program, where youth stands for younger, and O is for sorry, youth is an acronym as well. Y is for younger. O is for my brain's not working. U is for unique. I was for organic, sorry, which is the program more than the products, really. It's to do with it being changeable, because as we move through life, our skin changes, and as we move through the seasons, our skin changes. So it's no good if our program is very rigid. It needs to be movable and changeable. Sometimes a product will agree with us for a while and then won't anymore, or won't help anymore. So we need to have an organic program in mind. U for unique, as I said, T for treatment, H for holistic. So that's my Journey to Youth program, and that is what I do my coaching through. And if you'd like to join my program, then get in touch with me on my Facebook group, which is Forever Young, the book on Facebook, and I would love to welcome you there. So back to today's program, which is about sugar. And I said I talk about nutrition and what's good for you. Sugar is not good for you. Sugar is a baddie for your skin. What is good for your skin is fat and oil. And I think things have changed around a lot in the last few years. I've been rattling on about this for quite a few years now, about how in the 80s, many people stopped saying that sugar was bad for you. I remember in the 70s, everybody said don't eat too much sugar and don't eat too many carbs. And then suddenly in the 80s, people were saying, no, do eat carbs, don't eat fat. Fat's the bad guy. And since then, people's skin has been suffering. If you eat a very, very, very low fat diet, quite often your skin will become quite dry and um, difficult, really just uncomfortable, not in such great shape, because um, fats such as omega-3s are essential fatty acids, which we cannot make in our bodies. The only way we can get these fats is from eating them. And if we don't eat any oils or fats, then we're not going to get those nutrients in our bodies, and our skin is going to suffer. And omega-3 is a really huge one for your skin, because not only does it help add that vibrancy to your skin, but it helps with anti-inflammation, so it helps reduce redness. People that have a lot of inflammation in their bodies suffer from all kinds of problems. It's very heavily related to disease, and omega-3 is one of the biggest anti-inflammatories that we have in our bodies, one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories that we have to help our bodies counteract that inflammation. So omega-3 is very important, and obviously vegetarians are not eating a lot of fish, so then obviously going to be worried that maybe they're not getting enough of that vitamin, of that nutrient, sorry, omega-3 fatty acid. So the best sources for these fatty acids are seeds and things like flaxseed oil and stuff like that. But that's off track. That's the stuff that's good for your skin, the oils and the fats, which people have been avoiding having in their diets because they've been worried that they've been making them fat. Now, in the last few years, there's been a big turnaround, and people are now saying that sugar's the bad guy again, and that fat's not bad for you in the same way. So I'm really pleased that people are coming on board with this idea that I've been saying for a while now. But the thing about sugar, the reason sugar is so very bad for your skin is because of something called glycation or glycosylation. They both mean the same thing. And basically what this means is that the underlying structure in our skin is a system of proteins that kind of form a support structure. They're kind of like threads that go through our skin and hold it all in place, called collagen, and also elastin fibers, which are kind of tightly wound fibers, which help that springiness in our skin. And the collagen in particular is a protein that is very poorly affected, or quite it has is detrimentally affected when we eat sugar, or at least when we eat excess sugar. Now, the thing about our bodies is we need sugar desperately all of the time, because it's sugar that actually powers us and makes our brains work. So if we don't have enough sugar or carbohydrate in our bodies, then we actually perform very poorly. But in our society, sugars and carbohydrates are much more easy to come by than they were when our bodies were created. So when our bodies kind of became the shape they are currently, in the form they are currently, seeds and things like that, wheat and these kind of areas that we get large amounts of carbohydrate from, such as tubers like potatoes and things like that, and even fruits, were in fairly short supply. Fruits were very seasonal, and things like potatoes, they really would have just been roots. They wouldn't have grown these more bulbous things yet. We've created potatoes and things to have these thick, kind of heavy, bulbous potatoes on, which are storages of carbohydrate, where the plant stored carbohydrate for itself. But we've deliberately bred plants to have large amounts of this carbohydrate. When the plants are natural, they just have kind of a thickish sort of root. It's not a big bulbous lump at all. It would be like a very fine sort of a carrot. Carrots are quite thick compared to normal roots, so it would be like a very thin carrot. And so those kind of carbohydrates were actually quite hard to come by, and eaten all we could get. And so we've trained ourselves. Our bodies are automatically hardwired for us to take on as much carbohydrate as we can, because it would have been quite hard to get hold of. And people intrinsically are designed for doing the amount of exercise they have to do in order to feed themselves. So we would have had to have walked all day to get carbohydrates, and the men would have gone hunting and all of that stuff. We all know that. But actually, before we were hunting very much, we were gathering more. And we would have walked for miles to get hold of enough of these kinds of foods to sustain ourselves. And if we didn't have to walk very many miles, which we don't these days, then the amount of carbohydrate we would get would mean that we're not doing the amount of exercise we need to burn it off. The reason that we're kind of hardwired to get so much of it is because we're used to having to walk miles and miles and spend the whole day getting enough just to kind of keep our brains and our bodies warm and working properly. So actually, it's not our fault that we desire these foods. Actually, the reason we desire these foods so much is because that's the way we're created. We're told, our brains tell us that we need that. So actually, we tend to eat a lot more carbohydrate than we actually need to sustain ourselves. And the problem with that is that carbohydrate is turned straight into sugar. So it's whether we eat it as actual sugar in our coffee or whether we just eat too many potatoes on our plate. Ultimately, it's all going to be turned into sugar, which is going to go into our bloodstream. And sugar in our bloodstream goes through and bathes all of our cells, bringing with it the blood brings with it all of the nutrients, but it's taking that sugar with it. And when the sugar gets out to our skin and meets the collagen, then it has this reaction with collagen called glycation or glycosylation, which means that it kind of hardens it, and it pushes, it sort of creates sort of stickiness in the collagen and elastin fibers, and they bond together. And if you can imagine that hardened and bonded together collagen and elastin fibers are not going to be as pliable as fibers are not stuck to each other, that are loose and soft. So our skin, that when we were young and it was very, very healthy before it was attacked by the sugar, is nice and stretchy and pliable and bouncy, and when we touch it, it comes back to the touch and it's smooth and unwrinkled. Now, when these collagens bind together, they become less elastic, so they don't stretch as well, they're not as bouncy because they're firmer, and eventually this causes lines and wrinkles. So this is why sugar is so very, very bad for your skin. And my dear friend Marina, having read my book, decided to give up sugar because this really had an impact on her. She really realised that this was the one thing to her that was most important to change. Now, if you read my book, it may be that there are other things that you would think are more important for you to change, and that's a very individual thing. Like I say, the plan's individual. But Everybody should consider lowering the sugar that they eat in their diets and the amount of carbohydrate they eat in their diets, because not only is it likely to cause aging, it's also likely to cause a spare tire, such as I have at the moment. Um, and yeah, excess weight gain, as we know, is bad for health, it's bad for our hearts, and it increases the risk of all kinds of diseases. So this is the main reason that people will always be told they need to avoid eating too much sugar and carbohydrate. But if we can allow vanity to slip in for a few minutes, then I will say that actually the thing that you might notice most when you look in the mirror, apart from those extra added pounds, of course, is that actually your skin is going to age much more rapidly if it's constantly bombarded by too much sugar in the bloodstream. Um, so, yeah, this is why I think that it's a good idea not to eat too much sugar. And I can hear those people on the sidelines saying, that's okay, I won't eat sugar. I'm going to swap and I'm going to have the non-sugar varieties of soft drinks that I love to have every day. And I'm going to say, please don't do that. I have a personal vendetta against these kind of sweeteners, in particular aspartame, because our bodies don't actually recognise aspartame. Some of the others are not so bad. They're made of, they're quite natural things that just actually have a lot more sweetness in them, such as stevia or saccharin. Our bodies can actually process those things. Although I've heard poor stories about what stevia can do to some people. I had a friend who it made particularly ill. So if you start eating stevia and discover that you have problems with it, then I would say check whether it's the stevia that's making you ill, because my friend who had been walking 5 miles a day for ages suddenly became quite unable to walk in, and his joints all swelled, and it caused massive inflammation and made him extremely unwell, and ended up hospitalising him. And when he checked everything, it turned out to be the stevia that he replaced his sugar with. So I'm very reluctant to replace ordinary sugar, which our bodies are created to eat, in it, and use something, particularly something man-made like aspartame, into our bodies. Aspartame is not metabolized well by most people, and some people in particular can't metabolize it at all. So, and this is going to disgust some of you, particularly if you're eating your breakfast. So do excuse me. But if you've ever been having eaten some sugar puffs or some asparagus to the lavatory and smelt your food in your urine, then this is a byproduct that people sometimes get in their urine, called and it's called ketonuria, and this is completely harmless when it comes from food, stuff like that. But actually, if you have this substance in your body, that means that you haven't, well, basically haven't broken down some of the products completely, which is why it ends up in your urine. It means that you are unable to metabolize aspartame at all well. And so for people that have that condition, it actually means that this substance is not going to be broken down in their bodies. And I am one of these people, and I discovered, I didn't realise that. That was something I found out subsequently, much later. But when back in the 80s, when I was trying to very first lose weight, I swapped out the Coke that I was drinking regularly for Diet Coke, and it gave me massive headaches, a kind of migraine type headache. And so I knew that it wasn't good for me. But actually, recent research has shown that not only is it not broken down well by some people, so actually quite bad for them people, but also that people who eat diet products containing these kind of sugar replacements actually tend to be heavier despite their kind of general food choices in life. Um, so even though they might eat quite similarly to people that don't choose diet drinks, the ones that do choose the diet drinks tend to be about 10 pounds heavier than those that don't. And I thought this was quite remarkable research, and I thought that actually most people might think that's kind of counterintuitive, but also for me that's very worrying. But not only that, people with diabetes that are using these kind of diet drinks instead of the sugar version because they've got diabetes, actually our bodies respond to aspartame the same way as they do to sugar. So because your body expects sugar, it actually still dumps the insulin into our bodies. And then the insulin is flying around our bodies without any sugar to attack. So in fact, it's actually very bad for people with diabetes as well, because it still causes that insulin insensitivity, which is responsible for type 2 diabetes. Um, so, yeah, I really have a downer on sugar replacement, and my own personal opinion is that sugar is designed for us to eat in small quantities. So if something's sugary, it means you shouldn't eat very much of it, but it's fine to eat some of it. And so don't replace it. If you want something sugary, eat something sugary, but don't eat very much of it. That's my own particular thought on the whole thing, and that's how I try to live. And I don't take sugar in any of my drinks or anything like that, and I very rarely have sugary drinks. I don't drink orange juice, and I don't drink kind of colas and things like that more than maybe once or twice a month, even. But I tend to eat sugary things, which is my big downfall. Um, but you know, those things that contain sugar tend to be unhealthy for us in other ways as well. So it isn't difficult for us to look at them and say, okay, I know it says diet on the packet. I know it says it's low sugar or low fat or something like that, but actually it's not very good for me. So why don't I just avoid that food entirely and just swap it out for something um, that's the full fat version, but don't have it as very often? That's my recommendation on that. If you're struggling to avoid sugary things, just say to yourself, I'm not going to swap it. I'm just going to have one once a week, and or whatever. Use the 80-20 rule, which means that 80% of the time you're good, and 20% of the time you're allowed to have a little bit of junk, which probably means approximately that you can eat what you like on a Sunday and just be good to yourself most of the rest of the week. Anyway, so that's me and my conversation about sugar for today. And I'd like to thank you for joining me for this. I'll invite you once again. If you missed the beginning of the show, I was saying that I'm going to be doing pampering next week. So fetch along your products, join me without your makeup on, and or join me with your makeup on and just listening if you're in the car. Please don't attempt to do a full facial while you're driving, obviously. So yeah, join me next Friday, and I should be here 8 o'clock with my products, and I'll talk about products, how to use them, what ones to choose, and what ingredients to look out for in your products. Thank you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This has been Kim, your forever young host, speaking to you from Radlett near London. And I wish you the very best weekend, and I shall speak to you again next week. Bye bye. And join me on Facebook.